Hi there Year 9 English teachers. I thought I'd create this video to support the work that I was doing with you around numeracy and our odds in the Hunger Games. You can use this as a refresher to support you to provide similar numeracy opportunities for your students in the future. So the topic is May the odds be in your favour. Now our second slide focuses on our learning goals for the session, and they're based around messy space, which is our problem solving strategy for numeracy in our AIP. So what our students do is they get an A4 or an A3 sheet of paper and they fold it into thirds. The first phase looking at what they already know, our second phase is their messy space, and their third phase is their clean answer. This slide focuses on all the different ways they can use messy space, because we want messy space to be something they can use in different KLAs and in different contexts. We want this problem solving strategy to be a tool that our students can take away. Next, we have a 5-minute YouTube clip on the reaping. Students will need to watch this to be able to engage with the problems in the session. So this looks at how the reaping works. So when our students are 12, they would have 1 entry in the games. If they were 13, they would have 2 entries. If they were 14, there would be 3 entries, and so on until they're 18. They would have a total of 7 entries in the Hunger Games. So we have 4 focus questions or inquiry questions that our students will answer during this session, and they are on the slide here. So they're looking at the odds of their names being drawn out, looking at the highest and lowest odds in their classroom, and having a focus on gender and its impacts on their probability. So this is for you. So probability can be described in words, as decimals, as fractions, and as percentages, and you can see that probability scale there, and it ranges from 0, it's never going to happen, through to certain, it is absolutely going to happen. And we're going to have a focus on fractions and percentages. So underneath that chart, have probability there. And if we were to represent probability in a fraction, the number on the top of the fraction, or numerator, would be the number of successful outcomes. And the number on the bottom, called the denominator, would be all the possible outcomes. In my words, probability on the top, the numerator, it's how many, and on the bottom, the denominator is over our total. So we have the messy space framework, and our students are going to use that to answer these problems. So let's look at phase 1. What do our students already know, and what do they need to know? So the first area, what do I already know, lists all the information they've gathered so far by engaging in the lesson, and what do they need to know is the question. So what do they already know? They know that 1 boy and 1 girl is going to be selected. They know that you can volunteer for your district, and students know that their entries is dependent on their age. What do they need to know? They're looking at their individual chances. So let's jump into messy space, our phase 2, where our students devise a plan and they choose a strategy. So this is what our students need to come up with. They need to make a separate list of boys and girls, and they need to record the number of entries in the reaping beside each of the students. If students were going to find their odds of being picked out, they need to write on the top of their fraction how many entries they have in the Hunger Games, which is called our numerator, and on the bottom of their fraction, they need to write down the total entries of their gender. So they need to add up all of the boys if they're a boy, and all of the girls if they're a girl, and that will form their bottom number or their denominator. I've provided an example here so you can see what it looks like. For example, let's look in that boys column in the messy space. There are 20 entries all up, and Rob has 5. So his chances are 5/20ths. 5/20ths doesn't really mean much for students though. So what Rob could do is he could do 5/20ths times 100 to get 25% chance, or if he didn't have a calculator, he could do 5 divided by 20 times 100 on his phone, which would produce the same result, 25%. And in our girls section, we have Lucy. She has 4 entries, and there are 17 total entries for girls. So it would be 4 over 17 times 100 to get that 23.5%, or you could do 4 divided by 17 if you didn't have a calculator. So our students' odds should be represented as a percentage. you might want to go through and do an example for a student to give the students a starting point if they don't know what to do. We then look at our messy space phase 3, which is our clean answer, and they answer the problems above. So they're going to look at the highest percentage of their class and the lowest percentage. That's our students with the highest and the lowest odds. And then what they'll do is they'll have a look at their gender and seeing if that affects their chances. Now their gender may or may not affect their chance of getting picked out. It really is dependent on how many girls and how many boys are in your room and what age they are. Once they've gone through and solved that, their messy space 3 phases should be filled. They then make a guess at which boy they think is going to get picked out and which girl they think is going to get picked out in their classroom. It may not be the student with the highest odds. From there you can have a talk about how Primrose got picked out, and she didn't have as many entries as Katniss. Katniss would have had quite a few entries, however she wasn't actually picked out. So students with the highest odds will not necessarily get picked. Good point for conversation. So once they've made their guess, you're going to then create a male draw and a female draw. So our students will rip off small pieces of paper with however many entries they are putting into the Hunger Games. We put it on the boys' side and we put it on the girls' side, and then we draw it out. Once you draw out your one boy and your one girl, have a look at their odds. Do they have the highest odds in their class? Remember, probability is all about chance. Very similar to the Hunger Games. Now, if you need any more information on this, just send me an email. Happy to come into your classroom or give me a ring on 713, and I hope this resource will help you. Thanks very much.